I'm Adele Currin, and I'm a relationship and communication coach. I help people have really authentic and fulfilling relationships, whether they end up staying together or not. My initial coach training was in integrative health coaching. So, what I learned in that program was how to help people create healthy habits. So, it's all about that's what a habit is. It's like, how do you make a positive change in your life? Right. So, what I've really done is taken that training and now I am applying it to what I'm doing around relationships. It's like if we're learning a new skill, like learning how to drive a car, you have all these different components that seem clunky and awkward at first. But first, you have to learn the skill, right? You have to like get behind the wheel. You have to be in there with an instructor who's telling you, like, okay, turn right, turn left, avoid the pitfalls. And then you actually have to get behind the wheel and practice a lot. And so that's where my approach is really different. I'm teaching people new skills. I'm showing them how to practice. I'm actually holding their hand and guiding them and holding them accountable as they practice. And that's another thing that's a little different is that like as a coach, I am someone's coach all the time. It's not just once a week. We're in constant communication because, right, like if you're practicing something, you need someone to help you. And then I'm there to like provide feedback. And a lot of times, what gets in people's way as they are practicing these things, this comes into play too, is they'll start like not doing the thing, or they sabotage, or like go eat the donuts, even when they said they're eating healthy. And I help them around those obstacles too, just through coaching, but also through this deep subconscious work. So we learn what's in the standing in the way, and often it's this big subconscious belief we have about ourselves. And then I'm also trained in a type of hypnotherapy that helps them get around that. Of course, happiness is like your mental health, right? You can't be happy if you're not mentally healthy. I often read on these lists that how much your relationships impact your happiness and your overall mental health. And what I typically see is just like it's in a list, like focus on your relationships. Okay, that's great. And every time I read that list, I'm like, well, that's nice. But the problem is, most of us don't really know how to do relationships well. And although our relationships can be a source of great happiness and peace and, optimize our mental health, for so many people, it's the chief source of stress in their lives. I'd say for the majority of us. I know it has been for me, you know. For some reason, people often think they need to be able to figure it out and that this is not an area where they want to really spend a lot of time or money. Um, and so people do things like, I mean, I'm a huge fan of self-help books personally, but people will buy a book or look at Instagram and think they can figure it out. And although you can get some good ideas that way, like you really need someone to be with you who's trained to help you, really get through this stuff. And, for me, life is hard, it's complex. Being a human being is super challenging. And so like I I think there's no greater um no better way to invest your resources than on helping yourself get happier and having relationships that are healthy. And so the good thing is, I think there's a lot less stigma about getting help than there used to be. We're like, I often say that I'm part of the Oprah generation. I mean, I grew up watching Oprah, and before her, I, it wasn't okay to talk about our problems. I think our parents' generations just kept everything silent. So at least we have some of that stigma removed. And yet I still see a lot of people, a lot of couples I'll work with will say, they're contemplating divorce and they never have been to a single day of counseling. And that's just sad to me. In fact, one of the things I want to do in the future is do retreats for couples who are like not even married yet or newly married, so that, we're not waiting around until it's too late. And that's what often happens. People just wait till it's far too late and then there's no going back. So, yeah, I would, encourage anyone who's struggling to actually reach out and get help. And one thing people do tend to like about coaching, for whatever reason, being like in coaching or having a couples coach sounds a little less clinical. I mean, and it is less clinical. Um, and that's one thing I really like about it too. It's like my clients tend to be people who are high achievers, They work hard. They want to have better lives. So the kind of work I do isn't even necessarily for people who are at the end of their rope. It's often for people who are like wanting to up level and wanting to make things even better. We all have beliefs about ourselves and about the world, but especially about ourselves that we form when we're really, really, really young, before we can even form language, usually. Once we have these beliefs about ourselves, they tend to become a self fulfilling prophecy. So when we but because these beliefs are beneath our conscious awareness, we don't even realize that's what's tripping us up. Okay. So an example could be, this is actually a belief I discovered when I was doing, my own work, which which I've done. Um, I realized I had a deep seated belief that I don't matter, and therefore what I want and what I need doesn't matter either. If I can help someone learn how to be, um, not just get along with other people better, but like I said earlier, my work, if there's a couple, starts with each individual person. If I can help each individual person thrive, be happy, healthy, then they stand a much better chance of having happy, healthy relationships together. And then there are all kinds of things that go into that. Um, but when people come to me, often what they say is that they are completely miserable, even when they're in a relationship. In fact, I think the greatest misery I see is not with single people who want to be in a relationship, but people who are, I think the most miserable people are people who are married and feel stuck because they're like, I made this commitment. We have children, we have a house, we have all this stuff binding us together, and yet we are miserable. And, there's no worse loneliness than being with someone you're miserable with and have no connection with, because, you're looking at them thinking, this is supposed to be happy, and instead I'm miserable. And so I see that a lot. I think during COVID, like the problems in relationships are really highlighted because we spent so much time together. And that's been tough for a lot of people. So for me, if I can help someone improve their relationships, then their quality of life overall. Everybody practices therapy differently. Like that's, of course. And people practice coaching differently too. But in general, the main differences are therapy tends to focus more on the past, what happened maybe in our childhoods, or maybe even what happened, later in life. In general, coaching is more about looking to the future, and really towards what we want, and setting intentions and goals and things like that. Like think about a sports coach, right? It's about setting goals and like, let me help you get there. So it's similar with coaching. Like we're future focused. And the way we get to where we want to go is by focusing on what we're doing today. And typically there's not much looking back. Although what I just mentioned at the subconscious beliefs, there's no doubt a lot of the stuff we're carrying around comes from childhood. That's 100% true. So I'm not discounting therapy at all. I'm just saying that it's just only one piece of the puzzle. And the way I view my work is, if that's good. We need to learn where our stuff came from, but if we stay there, we don't make progress. So for me, coaching is something that you do when you are really ready to make progress and move forward in your life. My clients range from people who are struggling with their relationships. Actually, that's all my clients, right? No one's going to come to me if they aren't struggling with a relationship. But the people may be in different phases of that struggle, right? So, for example, some people might be married and they're struggling, but they want to stay together. Okay. So I can help both of them build the skills they need to make their relationship better. And I actually will work with both people in a couple. And the way I do it is different because I work with them individually before I bring them together. I find that to be much more effective. I can also work with people who are really struggling with that decision about whether or not they want to stay in the relationship. And I've been in that place many times, and I found it super hard. So I help people with that. I can also help people who are like going to go through a divorce to do that in a way that's really kind and respectful. I also sometimes work with people who are single who want to, um, do things better in the future. And what you'll learn is even though I work with people in their romantic relationships, it spills over to every relationship in your life. Like you can't, it's not possible for you to learn good relationship skills and not apply them to relationships with your kids or friends or whatever.